The consumer experience is all about introducing a savings account through the merchant, embedded through the merchant to offer to the consumer. When I decided to do this, I was not doing this just on my own vision, but based on a vision and a support of retailers to do this with me. It continues to be like that. We make money at the purchase point. We don't charge our merchants a SaaS fee or an installation fee or a monthly fee to use the product. It's really about aligning to the merchant's best interest, which is performance.
So on today's episode, you're going to be learning about a new trend, which is save now, buy later. It's a great episode. You don't want to miss, so do stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome to the 2X eCommerce podcast show. I'm your host, Kunal Campbell, and this podcast dedicated to rapid growth in online retail. So every week I bring in an expert, or a founder, or anyone who will give you value to you can apply to your e-commerce operations and just help you with incremental growth. That is the ethos of this podcast. On today's episode, you're about to listen to Michael Hirschfeld. He is the founder of Accrue Savings. I kept on mispronouncing Accrue Savings. I kept on saying Accrue Service, Accrue rather than Accrue Service, Accrue Savings rather. So what Accrue does is very, very interesting. The buy now, pay later, players, the Klarnas, their firms, where you buy a product and then you're in debt and then you pay. He's flipped that concept in the head with Accrue, in the sense that you save now and you buy later. So it's like a savings account for retail, for merchants. So when I see that really nice mattress, I really want to purchase, rather than having the instant, rather than suffering from instant gratification, I'm more with when I see the Accrue Savings badge on my favorite sites, on the mattress site. I think about delayed gratification by saying, okay, I can actually save for this. If I save £50 or $50 a month over the next 12 months, I should be able to save. And the interesting thing in the model is the fact that merchants then give purchasers an incentive to want to save. So it could be it's a reward essentially in terms of a discount, right? And when they get that discount, essentially they're onboarded to the savings and they start to save, and then they're able to purchase that item. It's interesting. There are new solution, and I like bringing new solutions, solutions that you haven't necessarily heard about, on the show, which just gives us just a bit of ideas to test, because there's no point bringing an app that you use on a regular basis. It's just not great. Remember the Extend episode in which I interviewed I think it's Rohan Shah, and I found the extended warranties proposition really, really interesting. That's what really attracted me to Accrue. Super, super interesting conversation I had with Michael. Enjoy this episode, and I shall catch you on the other side. Cheers. Hey, Michael, thank you for making it to the 2X eCommerce podcast show.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So you're founder, CEO of Accrue Savings. You're really rethinking the way consumers shop, a certain cohort of consumers shop. But before we jump into Accrue Savings, I would just... Do you want to just talk about Accrue Savings first? Let's give us a 30-second elevator pitch for Accrue Savings, please.
Of course, Accrue is
Accrue, sir.
No, it's okay. Accrue is a very simple idea. The idea is that every American and ultimately in the globe will have the opportunity to save up with a brand for an individual product, opening up a bank account to save with them. And we'll talk a little bit about my personal experience and why, but this is a forgotten part. I think a lot about how much credit has been introduced to American consumer behavior, global consumer behavior, and we have forgotten that most people save up for purchases, and merchants deserve the opportunity to offer a savings account to consumers and should reward them just like they reward their purchases. We believe deeply that that mission of savings should be introduced to the consumer where they are, and that's searching for things and offer the incentivized to do it.
Yeah, we're going to jump into the user experience because I'm like, this idea is novel to me, and I think I'm really, really sort of excited with the proposition, essentially. But before we do that, I'd like to get your background, your backstory. From the sound of things, you're not American, you're Canadian, I would think.
Are you catching my accent, or is it just? Well, I know we talked before.
I've done my research. My research backed with training. I've interviewed a lot of Canadians and Americans, and I'm starting to figure out accents. But yeah, do you want to give us a bit of your background, please? Your backstory.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Vancouver, Canada, and I started my first company first tech company in 2007 in Toronto, and I thought I was king of the world starting a company. Then I thought, I raised a little bit of money, and we think about value. It's funny, it's not the conversation, but I raised $250,000 on $500,000. From when I raised my seed round, how small when you look at valuations today. I thought it was the most amazing thing, and I got the bug. And obviously 2009 happened, and the company did not work out. And I moved to New York because I wanted to go to a place. And at that time, Toronto was not blooming as a tech ecosystem as it is today. But I moved to New York in pursuit of my dream of entrepreneurship and being around entrepreneurs. I mean, I had a lot of scars from that first experience. I think the mental health challenges of being an entrepreneur and the ups and seeing yourself in a way that maybe the world doesn't see you when things don't work out really hurt. But I needed to pick myself up, and I moved to New York for an amazing job in an early tech New York, 2009, 2010. I've been at a number of jobs in New York over the years. Most recently, I was at WeWork and had a bunch of jobs, including running our co-working sales business. And I have had lots of different experience. And this company, Accrue, is my first entrepreneurial startup since that 2009 unwinding. So that journey, in my own personal journey, is seeing the United States and seeing New York through the eyes of an immigrant, really lends itself to the company that I start today.
Interesting, very, very powerful. And WeWork, you were in product sales and the like. So with Accrue, why e-commerce? So savings, retail. Are you exclusively for a digital solution for commerce, for e-commerce, or do you transcend commerce? Are you going to be in retail stores, in retail experiences?
Yeah, I mean, so the consumer experience is all about introducing a savings account through the merchant, embedded through the merchant, to offer to the consumer. And that consumer may buy in store, but may buy online. It's omni-channel in its use case. It's about empowering the consumers to buy on their terms, to save on their terms. And so we haven't talked about the user experience, but Accrue is offered both in online, embedded on the consumer experience. We also already have merchants that are using us with their sales team. So some of our partners have high ticket prices and use sales teams on the phone. And so the idea here is that no matter where there is an offering to a consumer to potentially buy something, there isn't just one path, which is a credit option. Can I offer you a credit alternative? That there should be a savings alternative for consumers to buy on their terms. So you can take Accrue today and go in store for any of our partners and use the e-card to make the purchase, because we produce a Visa debit card ultimately when a consumer saves up for it to make the purchase. So it's omni-channel in end use case and in current state. But the best place for this to manifest is just where consumers are. And Kunle, for me, we know that consumers surf the web. 80-90% of consumers never get to checkout, and they're competing. Merchants are competing for their eyeballs and ultimately for their dollars. And so here, let us provide a solution, which is Accrue, for brands to offer consumers the opportunity to save up for something well before they're able to make the purchase. And ultimately, they'll make the purchase, the consumer, whether it's physical or online.
Okay. Makes sense. Let's just step back to your backstory again, which is when you started, your wife, or your missus, as we refer to our wives here in the UK, gave you an ultimatum. It was for a period of time, and you had to sprint. Do you want to just break down the first 3 months of starting Accrue Savings, and then we'll move into the experience?
Yeah. I mean, when I talk to prospective entrepreneurs and founders, I talk a lot about working in a box to validate an idea. And this sprint mentality and not being addicted to your own passion or to your own vision. Sometimes you need to validate something before you dive in. And for me, I had at the time 2 kids and a mortgage. And I left WeWork, and my wife is an amazing partner. And she and I talked a lot about what I was going to do next. And frankly, in January of last year, when I just left WeWork, I was very much looking for a job, a job, and I couldn't escape this idea, though. This view of the world that the world was missing something so important. And I spent a couple weeks interviewing, and I went to my wife in February of last year, and I said, I can't. This needs to exist in the world. Accrue needs to exist. I didn't have the name of the company yet, but merchants need to offer savings accounts in the world. And she said to me, we have 100 days. And starting on March 1st of last year, her and I agreed on 2 KPIs, 2 business metrics that I had to hit. And one of those metrics was not fundraising. They are both, can I find consumers? Can I prove out that consumers will use this product? And I did a very, very extensive enterprise-grade consumer research study with a consumer research firm that validated this. And I had to prove to her, I had to get 3 merchants to commit to trial this product, all in 100 days. And, did you
have a product?
To decide that I was starting this company. So I hadn't even started the company yet.
Right. Okay.
And, 100 days goes so quickly, but when you're relentless and you want something, it's amazing how much you can do in those 100 days. And so I, prodded my network for conversations with retailers and got the consumer research work done. And 100 days later, I had actually 5 retailers that committed to use the product, and a very, very extensive consumer research report, which really serves as the baseline of the company today, where we know with confidence.
And what were the findings? Sorry to, I really want to dig. So, and could you just break down what the consumer, reports, research report actually, the questions it was trying to validate your hypothesis at the time.
We know this if you have a significant other. Sorry for interrupting, but I had to prove to the most important person in my life that this was valid. And for her number one question is, do Americans save? Will consumers use Accrue? And you can't prove it to the nth degree, but statistics and this type of research report can prove it to a point. And here, what I tried to get in the research, narrow definition of the research was, are Americans saving? What are they saving for from a category level? And will they use, at least in an introduction sense, something like Accrue? And so what I got back was very relevant. 60-ish% of Americans are saving for high ticket price purchases, which is a lot, which is a very important number, right? That's not a 20, but it's 60 plus. It's the majority of Americans are saving up for stuff. And then the question that the research firm did was, what are they saving for? And so then I have this target list of categories that I know Americans are saving for. And you can see this in in my writing, right? We know Americans saving for travel. We know they save for cars. We know they save for furniture and home, for jewelry. There's a number of categories for health that are categories that are really important, large TAMs that massive companies are built on top of. So when we are going to market, and you can see this from our merchant adoption, we are responding to a very specific need that we know that the consumers have articulated want. And then the last, and that's what I had to prove to her. And so the combination of things, when I got that report back and the readout back, and when I closed those retailers, it wasn't a choice to start the company. The choice was done for me. And that for me is my model to start a company. And so when I decided to do this, I was not doing this just on my own vision, but based on a vision and a support of retailers to do this with me. It continues to be like that. This company launched in November, December of just last year. And when I talk about the retailer support for this vision, it is very powerful. And consumers, we know, want this, right? We see the BNPL, the headwinds around BNPL, how challenging retail credit cards, short-term credit, consumer credit is. This is something that is missing in an ecosystem. And I think it's not just a United States problem, although this is where we're solving today. This is a consumer and merchant problem that is both emotional, mission-driven, but also very much business value. And that's what the powerful of Accrue is.
Super, super, super interesting. So when we started this conversation, my thoughts were that Accrue's competition was like the buy now, save later, and that's because buy now, the buy now, pay later, the BNPLs, and you have a mantra which is save now, buy later, but your competition seems to be banks, because you're offering a savings account at retail. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that right now my competition is Facebook and Google. We haven't talked about this in this conversation. We pre-talked about this, but Accrue is offered as an upper funnel and mid funnel marketing tool for merchants to offer consumers when they're in the consideration phase. Marketing, consumer behavior is really interesting online, right? For most consumers, they browse the web. They take weeks, months, potentially years to buy a product, to go on a trip, to go on that family vacation, to buy the outdoor furniture they need for their property, to buy potentially, and this is where this is so interesting, right? For different consumer behavior, maybe to buy back to school clothes for their family. The reality is that takes a long time to get a consumer through that funnel. And for us, when we talk to merchants, we say to them, stop spending with Google and Facebook to retarget. Why do you need to drive? You are spending with these companies, especially with the removal of third-party cookies. You are spending with them trying to drive to consumers down the funnel. Why not you take that spend and deposit it into the bank account of consumers? Use that spend and inspire those consumers to get to that end point, which is ultimately to buy with you, but buy it on their terms, not with the financial insecurity that might come from a BNPL or from a credit card. And then ultimately banks. You mentioned banks, so yes, that is also the case too. But when we think about it from the behaviors of a merchant, my competitor is potentially their own traditional marketing spend. For consumers, for consumers, it is their own wallets. It could be what's sitting in the piggy bank on their desk, or yes, their individual bank.
Disposable income. Yeah. Okay, and then let's go through this makes perfect timing for going through the experience. On your site, you have Allbirds, Orit, if that's how it's pronounced, Smile, Direct Club, Casper. These are pretty big names. So you're going enterprise. I presume you like an enterprise first sort of solution, and then obviously you could address the rest of the market. So if I was to go to a Casper or a Smile or an Orate, these sites, how do I sort of interact with Accrue, and yes, and then what sort of experience should I? So I open up a bank account essentially on the merchant site in an app, or Could you break down the experience piece?
Yeah. So a consumer finds us on a brand's website, on a merchant's website. They could find us on a category page, on a homepage. Obviously, you found us on Casper's homepage, on a PDP, right? The consumer, when they're ready, or in an email, abandoned shopping cart email, or win back email, the consumer is offered this while they're browsing or in their email, and they will see an offering, not ready to buy today, or are you considering the purchase, or do you want to start saving up for Christmas or holiday season or the summer? And the consumer will say, like, yeah, I can get, you mean I can get 20% in yield or 20% in free money towards my purchase that I ultimately want to do for that for a necklace. I'm not sure what necklace I want to buy it, but I do know that I want to save up for my anniversary that's 6 to 9 months from now for my significant other. And so the idea is that you would see that offered on the merchant's experience, and it would drive you to set up an FDIC savings account. You go in the United States, go through KYC, and you open up the account. And then ultimately you have this bank account that you set up a savings schedule for, deposited, weekly, biweekly, monthly, on whatever terms the consumer feels is most comfortable for them. Again, right, like we forget that most consumers do not purchase on the day they travel to your website, right? 90% of consumers aren't ready to purchase, whether they don't want to, they can't afford it, they don't want to buy it, or they're just not ready. This is just offering someone a timely, processed framework to start saving with Accrue and the individual merchant for that individual product. And ultimately, when they save up for it, they hit the goal, and let's not forget, they are rewarded. When they set up an account, they might get $20 free in their bank account. They might get $50 free in their bank account when they hit 25% or 50%. Or Kunle, I might be saving up for this amazing, amazing gift for someone, but I want that my friends or my parents to contribute to it. One of the key features of Accrue is social contributions. We know, actually, one of our wonderful early merchants was Eternova, which is a jewelry brand that helps consumers save up to turn their ashes into diamonds. Very powerful, mission-driven business. And that is something that it's a very personal. There, we see consumers asking their loved ones to contribute to a very expensive product. I'm saving up for this diamond that I want to buy of my ashes of my mother. Help me save up for it. And so this GoFundMe social contribution piece, which is not just the rewards and the milestones that you're achieved through this saving, but also bringing people around you to help save up for the furniture, for the jewelry, or the trip. Those are all really powerful emotional, social values that when we think about building this business is particularly valuable.
Yeah, you just made some points.
So, I want to say something really important. Sorry for interrupting. It's much better for financial insecurity is such an deeply painful thing that people go through, and it's so much easier to ask someone to help someone, ask someone to pay for something they want to buy, they're saving up for, than asking someone to help them pay down their credit card or pay down their BNPL loan. And so again, when we think about mission-driven businesses, what do brands stand for? It's really important to think about economic sustainability and in talking this around not just consumer behavior, but also like what kind of society do we want to live in? What do we want our brands to stand for?
Super interesting. And what happens? What I guess my question is, what happens when I have saved up for that Casper bed, or whatever, the Casper bed. I've saved up
small direct liner. You have your debit card, your Accrue Smile Direct SDC debit card. You have your Casper debit card, and just like you would go and buy it regularly in store or online, you take your debit card and you make the purchase. When you've saved up for that individual item, when you've achieved that dollar amount, let's say it's $1,000 or $2,000 or $200, when you yourself have earned or saved up and have earned the rewards and gotten the contribution to make that purchase, you go out and make that purchase.
So as a consumer, Accrue Savings does not know the product. It just knows the amount. So it's not going to sort of purchase on my behalf
No,
after I've saved up for the bit. So I could use that debit card and shop somewhere else. Is
no. So
shop something else
to show
completely.
you, okay, because the debit card is tied to an individual merchant.
Okay, makes sense.
Right. So it's because don't forget, you are rewarded with deposits of these cash rewards. Right. So you
Right,
have to
right.
take your Smile Direct rewards and deposit it and spend it at Smile Direct Club. You can't take
Okay,
your Smile Direct Club and spend it with a competitor. You can't, but you
okay,
can always, this is real, again, goes back to consumer behavior. You can pause your saving schedule, but you can also withdraw your principal. If you need the money to pay for rent or to pay for something different, or something just changes and your behavior changes, you can always withdraw your money. It is not deposited with a particular retailer. It is
okay,
your savings account.
okay,
And only when you're ready to purchase do you
okay.
purchase.
So I get these rewards. Do I get interest on like an interest on my savings with Accrue, or is it just the rewards? So the rewards sort of translates as
The cash rewards are like an interest, right? It could mean that you're getting 25-30% yield on your money, right? So if a merchant is contributing $200 for $1,000 AOV,
got it.
and you save that over 6 months, that yield is 30
Got it.
is
Got it.
significantly more.
So for savings, you get a rebate first, and then that's your target, sort of savings amount, and then over the period of making those payments, you'd get a few dollars here and there to encourage you to save to hit your target on time, and then you then have this debit card which you could use to purchase from that merchant.
Yeah,
Is that
we don't use the language of rebate, right? We think it needs to be seen like how everyone behaves, and which is a savings account, right? This sort of notion of interest, this notion of like rewards for, right? You get something for the dopamine, that the reward that comes from those things, positive
got it?
reward. Yeah, you are celebrated with this capital, with this cash reward that ultimately needs to be spent at an individual merchant that you're spending with.
Okay, makes sense. So does that mean that the merchant pays your company, Accrue savings for converting that customer who would not otherwise have converted? Because most of your call to actions are at the upper funnel, I would think, as in the lowest down the funnel is in a PDP, a product
Yeah,
description page.
yeah.
So you're typically on the homepage or on the product page, and you're saying, hey, you can save for this product here. Why not start savings? And then it opens up an account essentially.
Yeah, I mean, we make money at the purchase point. We don't
Okay,
charge our merchants a SaaS fee or an installation fee or a monthly fee to use the product. It's really about aligning to the merchant's best interest, which is performance, right? Which goes back to like why we talked about competitive dynamics, right? So Google and Facebook charge you throughout the funnel for
okay,
retargeting, for targeting consumers. We think that we should get rewarded at performance
okay,
by
okay.
the
Makes
individual.
sense. Makes sense. And I think my final question has got to do with, this is what every e-commerce director is probably thinking about now who's listening to this, which really is conversions. So I had someone come in to talk about. He came to talk about just warranties. So he runs like a digital native warranty company. That gives you sort of the same perks you have with Apple Care for any
Yeah.
D2C operator. And then one thing I asked him was like, what's the net impact on conversion? So do you have any statistics, numbers from merchants that you're working with that sort of show, okay, typically this percentage of people move from our PDP to our checkout, but with Accrue we're able to sort of savage
Yeah.
this
So
portion of people essentially.
we're going to come out with our first case study with Smile Direct Club in a couple weeks, which we're really excited about. You're first to know that, but we're coming out with a brand which is obviously a large brand, public
Super.
company brand, and
Hmm.
there we're outperforming by about 70% other elements on their website. Obviously, it's early. We just rolled out with them a few months ago around ultimately purchase conversion.
Mhm.
But we do know just through expansion of use cases with them, like how well we are performing. And the return on ad spend is significant enough that they're doubling down on use cases for us. So obviously we'll post heavily share the case study with you on the 70% plus conversion improvement from other assets on their page, right? Conversion optimization. We are outperforming other elements on the site, and also we have a very positive impact on PDPs, right? So when we think about does this impact the performance on PDPs, it does not negatively impact performance. It has actually positive impact. We are attracting consumers that weren't purchasing anyway. So it's all upside, right? It's all gravy for our merchants when they think about us. And even more so when they're thinking, in addition, I should say, to many of your listeners are probably, I'm not sure where they sit on the size of operations standpoint, whether Shopify merchants or enterprise, but also repeat customers, right? So over the next few months, we'll be introducing this for funding accounts of repeat customers. And this is going after a set of consumers that are also very hard when an LTV standpoint, really important, but how do you fund the bank accounts of consumers that might buy that second pair of glasses with you or those second pair of shoes with you? We definitely have that value proposition as well.
Okay. Another question came to mind, which has got to do with when I open a savings account with yourselves, and it generates obviously a debit card. Once I've saved, if I was to go to another merchant, say I started with Smile and I set an account up, and I was to go to Casper, how does account management work? Do I get multiple debit cards?
Yeah, so because the debit number is tied to the individual merchant, and we're not producing physical cards yet because none of our merchants have asked us to produce physical cards yet. To date, it's just electronic Apple cards that are reflective to the particular merchant that you're saving for and are produced at the point that a consumer is ready to purchase or is saved up. Until then, you may have. From your mouth to God's ear, it's Kunle. Like many consumers should be saving up for many products, and this business that is only a few months in have consumers that are saving for multiple things, and over time, I'm sure it will be more expansive. But yes, that is an important value to our merchants. Right, we are Switzerland to them. We do not choose sides. All we are doing is offering this banking and marketing tool for them to acquire customers at a lower CAC than they're already doing.
Yeah. Michael, I could go on and on and on, but very, very super interesting, finding out more about Accrue, savings. I'd really like to touch base again, 18 months from now to see how you guys are doing. Just seems very, very interesting, particularly given the fact that you have access to so much customer data now, especially customers that save. There's a lot of opportunity essentially to cross sell. But a great many thanks for coming on the 2x eCommerce podcast show. For those people who want to find out more about accruesavings.com, it's ACCRUE savings SAVINGS.com. We'll link to it in the show notes. How best can, if people just want to ask you questions?
Yeah, send me an email. I mean, this is a mission, right? There's this vision of ubiquity that every retailer in the world should offer savings accounts, and I deeply believe that that's sort of forgotten. So if you share in that vision, or you want to push back on that vision, or you just want to, we say you just want to kibitz, I'm always game for a good kibitz. So which is Yiddish for good conversation, and this was a really fun one. Kunle, and I'm excited we got a chance to do this, and look forward to being in touch in the future.
Same here. Incredible stuff. Thank you, Michael. Cheers.